What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14, and also featuring that college football revamp as well. We are here with a brand new season of NCSL football. We are now moving on to year number 4. It should be another exciting year of college football. You always love to have that college football in your airwaves. And we have a good episode here today for this preseason episode. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the polls at the college and national level, as well as take a look at some of those preseason All-Americans and that preseason award watch. Plus, not to mention, one of the best parts about the preseason, in my opinion, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the new custom players and custom coaches that are joining the college ranks here today. So I hope you guys are excited for this episode. If you are, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the top 25 polls here for the NCSL preseason before diving into each individual conference. So no surprises here. UCLA is your number 1 team in the preseason polls. They did win the national championship last year. And then Texas is here at number 2, seeing as they made it as a runner-up in the previous season. But what's the rest of the top 25 looking like? We do have a couple of surprises here. How about Cal at number 6 first and foremost? The Cal Bears were a team that made it to the playoffs as an at-large team. Well, they're very close to doing it, but at the same time, Cal is not the same team as last year. They're only an 84 overall squad, so Cal could be due to go ahead and possibly take a step back this season. Probably still good enough to make it to a bowl game. We also have some other teams to definitely keep an eye on as the season progresses. How about some of these other teams like Nebraska, for example? The Nebraska Cornhuskers, man. Nebraska is ranked number 18 in the country, but man, out there in the American Conference, they are having an excellent team. They have a 99 overall offense. They absolutely mean business as well. So very excited about that Nebraska game. Can't wait to see them unfold. They have a great big time matchup against Texas. Also, some other teams to look after is, how about Rice? Rice getting a little bit of love early on. They are going to be a preseason team ranked number 21 in the country. However, crazy thing about Rice is this is not the same Rice team as what we saw from previous seasons. So we'll see if Rice can live up to those expectations. But there's always seems to be a team that always just falls absolutely short, like fails to make it to a bowl game. Last year it was Oregon. Maybe Rice is that team that could fail to go to a bowl game here in year number 4. That was a preseason top 25 team. And then here is what the rest of the top 25 is looking like. How about Georgia Tech sneaking in there towards the end? They're going to be ranked number 24 in the country. Some other teams that are out there, just taking a look around the top 50 or so to see if there is like any notable teams in here. How about Navy, an A- overall team? Navy, a team that almost made it to the college football playoff. They were competitive in that Conference USA, but they could not find a way to beat Army. So that military rivalry was a key there, but Navy does have an excellent team there at 39. And then here's what the rest of this top 50 is going to be looking like going into year number 4. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take the time now to go ahead and dive into what we have in store within each individual conference. And because we like to go in alphabetical order, we're going to start in the ACC and taking a look at that Carolinas division. Now, in the Carolinas division, it is expected to be a 2-team race once again. Clemson and Virginia Tech ready to go at it once again. Their game did decide who ended up winning the ACC Carolinas division last year. Virginia Tech did win that game, but Clemson was a solid team. They ended up winning double-digit games themselves, but Virginia Tech was the team that did represent the ACC in the college football playoff. They're going to be expected to do that once again because the rest of the Carolinas division is not necessarily ready to compete for that top crown yet. So looking like a two-team race here in the Carolinas. But then in the Commonwealth division, it seems like it's pretty straightforward to who is expected to win the Commonwealth division. Looks like North Carolina is going to be a heavy favorite, as the other teams are just very low-end programs, to be nice about it. They don't have the championship pedigree. They all need a lot of work. So second place is going to be really interesting to see who's going to seize that crown. But it is expected that North Carolina is going to run away with this division this year. Could see North Carolina versus either Clemson or Virginia Tech for that ACC championship. Now let's go ahead and move on to the American and check out that Frontier division specifically. Nebraska is only a 4-star program, which is what I'm really surprised about. Nebraska had an excellent season last year. They won the American. They moved on to the quarterfinals of the NCSL playoffs last year, but they're going to be challenged. Nebraska should be pushed by Missouri, and they could be pushed by Minnesota as well. Minnesota's got a really good team, a very interesting division here in the American, at least on the top end. At the bottom, there is certainly a big gap after that. Kansas, Iowa State, and Kansas State at the very bottom. Looking like a 3-team race though for the American, so it should be a relatively wide open division. And then for the Great Lakes division, we have Wisconsin at the very top. Wisconsin seems to have a decent team. They made it to the playoffs back in year number 1. Should be a heavy favorite this year, as Wisconsin has a very strong infrastructure for their program, and none of these other programs seem to have that same level of infrastructure. Iowa may have the better team, but we do like Wisconsin to win the Great Lakes division, and they should run away with it somewhat comfortably. As for the Big 12, we always like to check in on essentially all the Texas and Oklahoma teams. How about the Alamo divisions to get things going? I think there should be no surprise here. The Texas Longhorns should win the Alamo division once again. They are one of the elite teams in college football. I'm not going to worry about previewing the rest of the division too terribly much, but this is how the rest of the division is expected to shake out. No one is ready to realistically compete with Texas this year. But the Lone Star could be a little bit more interesting. The Lone Star, which does have some Oklahoma teams, well, that could be a little bit more interesting of a watch. Who will play Texas in the Big 12 championship? Could it be in Oklahoma? Could it be in North Texas? Could it be their time to shine? Could be one of those two teams. And they're pretty evenly matched as well, so maybe we'll get some more North Texas action last year. North Texas did end up winning their bowl game last year, but Oklahoma is going to be the favorite here in year number 4 to face Texas in the Big 12 championship. But now we'll take a trip out into the Midwest, where we find the Buckeye division within the Big Ten Conference up next. Kind of the same thing here. Ohio State is expected to be the runaway favorite of the Buckeye division. None of these other Ohio schools are ready to necessarily keep up. Cincinnati did win it back in year number 1, but in years 2 and 3, it has been dominated overall by Ohio State. Another question here, though, is can Miami, Ohio finally take that next step? Miami was very close last year to making it real interesting in terms of maybe seeing Miami of Ohio get her done. But Michigan does end up winning that division once again, and Miami may be a year away from realistically competing for this division. But Miami, honestly, might be the 3rd best team in this entire conference. Unfortunately, they do have to run through Michigan, and that is always a massive ask for anybody, really. So, it should be Michigan and Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. Now, going over to the northeastern part of the country, where we have the Conference USA. How about we take a quick look at the Colonial Division with some of the Southern Conference USA teams. We got Navy that as the favorite, and Navy does have an excellent football team. They're a team to watch as a potential dark horse. If they can make it into the college football playoff, win the Conference USA, look out. They can certainly be a problem, but they certainly will not be without opposition. Maryland and Rutgers may have something to say about it. Temple is starting to build that infrastructure as well. Their team may be a year away, but the program is there to realistically compete for this Conference USA title if they deem that dream to actually be possible. And then for the Union Division, the defending champions in Army are looking to win the Conference USA once again, and it gets some love in the preseason rankings. Going to be ranked number 14 in the country, but again, also facing some adversities to fight for that Union crown. Penn State has a really strong football team. Can Penn State finally put it back together here in year number 4 so that we can see them in this college football playoff? Syracuse also looking to get back to the playoff for the first time since year number 1. They were able to win Conference USA back then. Pitt has a good team as well. They are an 88 overall squad, so can't sleep on Pitt either. Boston College is not bad. This is going to be one of the most open divisions in college football this season. This Conference USA Union division is going to be a real fun watch this year. Hopefully get some Conference USA games to cover. Now, real quick, we'll do the independents. This is how the two independent teams are doing. They're both 2-star programs, but one of the two always seems to find a way to make it to a bowl game. Now, for the MAC, we're going to go to the MAC South now, and this is where the Blues division actually exists. Tennessee did end up winning the MAC last year, and they're going to be looking to repeat that once again. They did have an upset in the first round of the playoff to Nebraska, but it looks like Tennessee is the favorite, but the Kentucky Wildcats could challenge, especially if Kentucky does host Tennessee this year at Kroger Field. That could be an interesting game throughout the season. And then the other teams are just lower end teams in the NCSL that are still trying to build their programs from the ground up. As for the Great Lakes, Notre Dame won the Great Lakes last year, but here comes Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois has really been a success story. They were a 1-star program all the way back in year number 1, but here they are as a 4-star program now. Maybe they are ready to challenge Notre Dame for that MAC championship crown. We'll see if Northern Illinois finally has what it takes. And then the mid-tier of the Great Lakes division is really not that bad. Well, besides Northwestern. Northwestern does exist, but should be a 2-team race here as well for that Great Lakes division. But now we'll go ahead and take a trip out west, where we will have the Mountain West Conference up next. We will go ahead and check in on the Desert Division. A lot of these teams in, of course, that desert environment. Colorado won the Mountain West last year. They got a little bit of lady luck on their side, but they did find a way to get it done nonetheless. Colorado is the favorite to win yet again, but there's no elite teams in the Mountain West, so it's definitely the most parity in all of college football in this Mountain West Conference, and we should have some of that here yet again. All of these teams do have some strengths and weaknesses, but almost all of these teams do have a realistic shot of winning the Desert Division this year. Air Force might be the only exception, but the Mountain West should have some interesting games in it, particularly in conference play. However, the same probably cannot be said for the Mountain Division. It was a miracle that Wyoming won it. They needed Utah to lose back in the last week of the regular season. Probably won't need that here yet again, as Utah does have a better team than anybody else. Wyoming was a good story last year, but Wyoming might fall back to earth. They did lose their strong offensive coordinator in Remy Natalius. That is a thing. So it looks like Utah is going to be that heavy favorite here to win the Mountain Division. The only question is, who will they face on the other side? But now we have one of the toughest divisions, toughest conferences, in all of college football. We now have the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has always provided some big-time matchups over the course of this series, and we expect that to continue here in year number 4. In the Northwest Division alone, we're going to have 2 top 10 teams. You got Washington at number 3, and then you got Cal at number 6 as well, but this is very much expected to be a 2-team race because there is a little bit of a drop-off after that when you look at like an Oregon State or a Nevada. Oregon even is not very highly ranked right now, although they do have a really good defense this year. And then Washington State. Washington State seems like they don't nearly have the same resources that these other schools have within their own division, so Washington State might be straight up not having a very good time here in year number 4. But in the Pacific, oh baby, we expect a 2-team race for the ages. Would not be shocked if once again we saw 2 teams from the same division make it into the college football playoff. I mean, we know about UCLA. They're the defending national champions, but USC's got a squad as well. You could argue that USC has a better team. They got the 97 overall, 97s across the board. USC is not messing around and playing any sort of games. Expect this to once again be a 2-team race. San Diego State is ranked, but they're probably at what best a year or 2 away from competing with the USCs and the UCLAs of the world. And then there's also some other solid teams in the Pac-12. There's certainly no easy out here. Moving on to the SEC now, we have the Peach Division here, and listen, we got the Georgia Bulldogs. They made it to the college football playoff. They are your defending SEC champions as well. We'll see what Georgia can do here in year number 4. They have an elite squad, a 99 overall offense. One of your custom coaches is now here as well, so you love to see that. But Georgia Tech, they are trending in the right direction themselves. Georgia Tech might have something to say in that game of good old-fashioned hate. This is certainly 2 teams to monitor in the SEC Peach Division. And here's what the rest of the Peach Division is looking like. Definitely some bottom feeders in here in the SEC, ironically. Now, over in the Sunshine, we have a new team on top of the Sunshine Division. It's Florida State. Florida State is actually projected to win this division this year. They did not. It was actually Miami that got it done, and Miami certainly does have themselves a very elite program themselves. Should be a fun game to watch for the Battle of the Seminole War Canoe. Florida's got a good team as well. USF is trending in the right direction. So lots of good football being played in the state of Florida. I don't think anybody is surprised by that at all. Should be a fun one to watch this year as well. And finally, we have the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt being one of a few conferences that actually has 14 teams in it. But now we go to the Bayou. This had a lot of parity in it last year. I believe Memphis won it last year, but Memphis is down at number 5. We'll see if we have that same kind of parity in the Bayou Division again this year. It looks like it is going to be a 4-team race realistically this year. LSU has the lead squad. They are the favorite, but listen, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Louisiana Tech, they all also have the teams to do it. Memphis, certainly, you can't sleep on the Memphis Tigers. They're defending Sunbelt Bayou champions, but no easy out here in the Bayou. This is probably, from a top to bottom perspective, probably the toughest division in college football. No easy outs in the Bayou division at all. In the Dixie, you could argue that it might be a little bit of the same thing here as well. There's a little bit more of a bottom feeder status, but Ole Miss is your defending Sun Belt champs though, and Ole Miss has an elite program to its name. They do have other top 25 programs. Alabama should be expected to challenge Ole Miss for that divisional crown. Auburn's got a good team as well. They're ranked in the top 25 for a reason. Mississippi State, they almost won the Dixie division last year, but unfortunately close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and nuclear missiles. And then here's the rest of the Sun Belt Dixie division. Again, no easy outs. How about Troy with a 93 overall offense? They could mess around and create some havoc as well. Should be, again, a fun conference to watch. I am pumped for some Sun Belt action. But now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the preseason award watch winners. And we always have to start with the biggest award in all of college football. It's that Heisman Trophy. We do have some players that you would recognize in here. Justin Florida is the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman this year. He had a big season last year, over 1,800 yards on the ground, 18 touchdowns. He is the centerpiece of the Ole Miss offense. Speaking of centerpieces, Keisuke Nakamura, he is back for his senior year, ready to mess things up. He should be a preseason All-American as well. The only quarterback listed on the preseason Heisman watch, and one of your guys' custom players as well, as you can see by that YT designation. And of course, you have Caleb Kirk. Caleb Kirk was a true freshman last year and finished as a Heisman finalist. Imagine that crazy world that we're living in there. And then rounding out your group, you do have Jonathan Sherman and Elliott Hartman, who both carry the loads for their respective teams, especially in that ground game. So that means there is certainly no surprise at all when we say that Keisuke Nakamura, he is going to be your first team All-American. He's going to highlight the first team All-Americans. And then you also have Justin Florida and Caleb Kirk as well. Wide receivers is interesting though. Matt Owens is getting some love and respect here. Now, you see that 77 overall and you're thinking to yourself, well, how could that be? Well, he's actually your Blinicoff winner from the previous season. He had 17 touchdowns last year. He might be a big centerpiece yet again. We'll see what Matt Owens can do here, kind of as a encore to his sophomore campaign. He is draft eligible, by the way. And then Dedrick Hill is the other wide receiver to watch out for out of Ole Miss. And rounding out your offensive weapons is Adam Williams, the senior tight end out of Houston, Texas. He does play for the Rice Owls. Last season, he had nearly 900 yards and 8 touchdowns over the course of the season. The offensive line is going to be responsible for protecting the skill position guys, and your offensive line is a tough bunch. You got Quentin Martinez, the senior Michigan out of Michigan. You have Cedric Hopkins, another senior redshirt out of Texas. Jared Grant, a true senior out of USC. How about some custom love? Jumbo Torosta, he's a senior from Miami. He's going to be protecting that interior the best he can, and then protecting the blind side for left-handed quarterbacks. You do have Aaron Samuel, a senior from USC. Now, moving on to the defensive side of the football. How about a youngin in TJ Bowen? TJ Bowen was an All-American last year as a freshman redshirt, and he is expected to do that once again as a sophomore. He had 8 sacks in his first year on the field. That is great production in a really good Sun Belt conference. We'll see if he can hit double-digit sacks here this upcoming season. Stanley Jones is on the other side. We've heard about this kid since day one. He's always made an impact for the Miami Hurricanes, and he's once again here on this All-American list. Now we go to the interior of the defensive line. We got Jason Thomas, the senior out of Texas. He's a Pampa, Texas product. Anthony Tyson, the senior redshirt out of Raymondville, Texas. He plays for the Miami Hurricanes, and he'll round out your defensive line. Now, moving on to the linebackers, we got a true junior from Lake Providence, Louisiana, in Terrell Skinner. Terrell Skinner was very close to leading the NCSL in tackles this last season. He had nearly 100 tackles. It was a real breakout campaign. Even though he didn't get to the quarterback, he just flies all around the field, has multiple forced fumbles and fumble recoveries to his name. He just plays real hard, man, and you love to see that. Speaking of players that play extremely hard, Reggie Allen, a sophomore out of Alabama. Again, a kid that played so much higher than what his overall would be. He had 90 tackles last year as a freshman, man. True freshman. Dude was at high school prom 6 months prior to the last football season starting. So no surprise he's on this first team All-American list. And the same goes for Jeff Bradley, who just continues to play higher than what his overall states. Jeff Bradley finally gets on the field as a sophomore, and he was a JUCO transfer too, keep in mind. And he ended up doing a little bit of everything for this Tennessee team. 3 interceptions, 2.5 sacks, couple of fumbles in there as well. Dude he does everything that needs to be done in order to win the football game. Now for the corners, you have Matt Williams out of UCLA. He's a senior redshirt out of Portland, Maine. He was far from home for sure. You got Brandon Williams, the senior out of Ole Miss, who will be occupying the other cornerback slots. Brian Davis, the junior out of UCLA. Now, Brian Davis had a big year last year. He had 72 tackles. He's a guy that is going to play in the box quite a bit, and he made some impact plays for sure. 3 interceptions, a defensive touchdown as well, plus multiple pass breakups to his name. He's an excellent football player for sure. And then on the other side, another UCLA corner, Casey Adams. You can see why they're predicted to win the national championship once again. They just have players all over the field. Casey Adams is one of them. He ends up with 3 interceptions last year himself. That UCLA secondary is certainly a no-fly zone. And then you do have your kicker in Cody Brooks out of BYU, and Jake Archie, the senior out of Tulane, and the returner, to no surprise, being Hunter Rice, the junior redshirt out of Southern Miss. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the second team All-Americans. And Josh Hall is going to get a lot of love here. He is actually an FCS transfer. Did play in his junior season at Western Kentucky. So that is why you do see him on this list. Very good quarterback for the Hilltoppers. One that I'm sure Doug Rose is going to utilize. But then you see some other not-so-surprises. I mean, of course, we have Elliott Hartman and Jonathan Sherman, who are projected to be preseason Heisman finalists. We also have Ike James out of Western Kentucky. Should be a high-flying connection for the Hilltoppers. As for the other wide receiver that is going to line up next to him, how about Sean Garcia, the senior wide receiver out of Georgia? This dude is an absolute menace to opposing DBs. Rounding out your skill position players for the second team offense is Fred Ferguson, the senior out of California. He's known for blocking, but make no mistake, he can make some big plays with his hands as well. He has 700 yards and 8 touchdowns during his junior campaign. Now, moving on to the offensive line. The second team offensive line for the All-Americans looks like this. You got Justin Steele, the senior redshirt out of Toledo. Zach Clark, the senior out of Auburn. He's from Springfield, Pennsylvania. Fred Harrison, the senior redshirt out of Utah. Mike Harrison, they are not related. He is at the Naval Academy. And rounding out the second team offensive line is Thomas Whitworth, a senior redshirt for the Duke Blue Devils. Now going over to the defenders, you have Paul Moore as a second team All-American. Paul Moore had an excellent season, one that ended with a Bednarik Award for the sophomore at the time. In his first year on the field, he had 12 sacks and a pass deflection. We'll see if he can build off of those 12 sacks and somehow be better than his true sophomore campaign. On the other side of him, you'll have Herb Beck, the senior out of Tennessee. Meanwhile, you end the interior of the second team All-American list. You have Tom Newman, the junior out of USC, hailing from Colonia, New Jersey, with Donnie Jones, a true sophomore in here. He made a huge impact as a true freshman as well. 18 TFLs, 8 sacks as well, 3 pass deflections, and 2 forced fumbles. Donnie Jones, while he was a true freshman last year, he certainly didn't play like one and is very deserving of that second team All-American designation. Now, for the linebackers, Aaron Little is on here as well. A young linebacker group at Alabama that's starting out there. Aaron Little is a guy that also had nearly 100 tackles last year, 4 sacks. A guy that just flew all over the field for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You got David McDonald in here as well. David McDonald, an FCS transfer. He won the FCS version of the Butkus Award. Welcome to the FBS ranks. Going to be playing some big-time college football, hopefully in his senior year. And then you got Eric Robinson, the senior redshirt out of Texas. Eric Robinson, breakout campaign after just having 3 total tackles in his first 2 seasons on the field. Finally, his junior redshirt campaign finally puts it together, and he had an excellent season, one that sees him being a second team preseason All-American. Now, for the corners, you have Danny Johnson, the senior redshirt out of Texas. Joseph Shabazz Harris, one of your guys' customs, was a true freshman that got plenty of playing time in his freshman campaign. And he stepped up to the challenge. 50 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. The lights were certainly not too big for this young man right here, and he'll look to build off of his freshman campaign now that he does have some more college football experience. Brian Fleming is also on here, the senior out of Penn State. His junior campaign also saw a minor breakout out of him. Did a little bit of everything. Got to the quarterback occasionally, forced some interceptions, got a couple of fumble recoveries too. Brian Fleming is just a solid all-around player for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And finally, you have Bo Herr, the junior out of Texas, the Catlin, Louisiana product. First year on the field as a sophomore, had 66 tackles, 3 interceptions, and a forced fumble to his name. Bo Herr is a certified baller. Of course, you have your special teams specialist here. That includes Timothy Osborne, the senior out of UCLA. Zach Harrison, the senior punter out of Minnesota. And the second best return man in Clayton Perkins, who is a sophomore out of the University of Nevada. But one of my favorite things to always do here is I always want to take a look at the new custom players and custom coaches that are going to be joining us here in the NCSL series. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on with our custom coaches first. We have quite a few custom coaches. First, how about James Dompkins? He is from the University of Michigan. That is where his alma mater is. He was one of the people that helped Connor Stowing steal the Michigan playbook. He didn't travel too far down I-70 because he is the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati in order to start his collegiate college coaching career. In addition, another coach that is going to be joining us this season is Justin Faith. Justin Faith was actually somebody that used to be the head coach at South Dakota State and Florida A&M, but now here he is making the jump up to the higher echelon of Division I football. He is now the offensive coordinator at Texas State here in year number 4. In addition, we have Kyle Faro, who will be taking on the offensive coordinator job at Kansas. He is going to be coming from Wisconsin, and he's going to be someone that's going to be trying to employ that Northwestern offense. He likes to run that spread offensive set, and if he does get a head coaching opportunity, he also is going to run a 4-3 defense. And the last custom coach that we actually have here is Caleb Huffman. Caleb Huffman is going to be the offensive coordinator from North Carolina. He's going to be taking the offensive coordinator job at Oklahoma State. Really young guy, only 23 years old, but a very smart young person right here. Will run the North Carolina offense because that's where he comes from. And defensively, he will run a 3-3-5 spread defense. And now the moment that y'all have been waiting for, at least many of you have been waiting for, let's go and take a look at some of the custom players that will be joining us here in year number 4. Starting at the University of Alabama, we got Derrick Henry II, the son of Titans running back Derrick Henry. Well, he's also a Division I college athlete either, but not playing at the running back position. He's going to be playing at tight end. He's going to be buried in the depth chart as of right now. Could be someone that gets redshirted in his true freshman campaign. Meanwhile, for Appalachian State, they signed the freshman one-star corner out of Simpsonville, South Carolina, and Timothy Barentine. Timothy Barentine is the son of Devin Barentine, who is still the offensive coordinator at Indiana. So a lot of lineage there in the Barentine family being built up. However, at wide receiver, we have a JUCO transfer who is one of the better wide receivers in the country right away. DeJounte Joseph, he is looking to be an instant impact player for the Auburn Tigers. DeJounte Joseph is looking to be a certified baller. And then at running back, you have a rare 259-pound running back out of Auburn. You got Ricky Bobby Jr., who actually did win the starting job for the running back position out of spring ball. So you love to see that, these kids that are coming in and making instant impacts. Meanwhile, for the Clemson Tigers, they only managed to get one custom player, and that is Big Show. Big Show is a big offensive lineman, 6'11", 350 pounds, but will be expected to come off the bench as he is still behind A.J. McCollum. He does have the chance to win the right guard job in his senior campaign, but he has a year to develop if he gets that opportunity to do so. Meanwhile, for the Duke Blue Devils, they only managed to sign one prospect this year. That's a custom guy, and that is Joseph Pierre. Joseph Pierre out of Grove City, Ohio. He's going to be one of those traditional passers, and he will be redshirted in his freshman campaign since he doesn't even make the free deep out of spring ball this year. He is better than fellow freshman Adam Morris. While I am thinking about your custom coaches that they get to work with, how about Jake Jacobs? He's going to have a custom player on his team as well. Doesn't necessarily get to coach him directly as a defensive coordinator, but he does get to work with Mason Williams, who will be on the scout team in his sophomore year. Would not be surprised if he ends up getting redshirted at the end of his season. Up next, we have the Florida State Seminoles, who did end up signing a couple of custom guys. Starting on the offensive side of ball, though, we have Michael Tremaine, who is a JUCO sophomore, but he is a speed burner, 94 speed. He is going to help expand the field for the Florida State offense this year. While only at 5'7", he should make a much bigger impact than what his height suggests. And then on the opposite side of the ball, we have Ryan Tremaine. So the brothers do end up being united together. He's going to play corner, though, and not as talented as his brother. He will be expected to be redshirted here in his first year with the program. After that, we have the Indiana Hoosiers, who signed a offensive player among the custom ranks. This is Jason James Matunde. Matunde is from Wheaton, Illinois. And just like Derrick Henry II, he will be buried on the depth chart early in his college career. He is expected to be the third tight end, but could work his way up to the backup tight end position, depending on the performance of Brandon Jackson. Keeping ourselves in the Midwest, though, we now go to the University of Iowa, where we run across the Lancaster, Ohio product in Mason Campbell. Mason Campbell, a true freshman, is a big man at 6'8", 375 pounds. Could get some early playing time in his college career, as he is actually on the 2 deep in his 4-3 defense. The same could also be said for freshman tight end Case Kohler, the Greer, South Carolina product. Case Kohler actually should be on the 2 deep as well, because he actually is listed ahead of Chris Tyler in terms of possibly being that backup tight end right away behind Jeremy Williams, who will graduate after this season. However, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, or in the high school football last year, was Braxton Jaeger. And a little bit surprised for Louisiana Tech, they managed to sign this kid. And Braxton Jaeger, he was so impressive that he is going to start as a true freshman. He beats out the junior redshirt Robbie Fox and fellow true freshman Javon Davis. So we will see Braxton Jaeger play day 1. Speaking of true freshmen that might make an impact, though, we go to LSU, where we find the tight end Jake Durant. Jake Durant out of St. Martinville, Louisiana, is on the 2 deep. He does win the backup tight end position out of spring ball. He will be backing up the senior redshirt in Joe Potts. So looking at Jake Durant possibly starting in year number 5. However, 2 of his brothers end up going to the University of Maryland. One brother is going to play at the running back position in Carl Durant. He will be the backup running back behind the senior in Nate Anderson. So a similar situation for Carl Durant. And then at wide receiver, Jackson Durant, he's the most talented of the 3. Well, he's going to be listed as the number 3 wide receiver and should be expected to get some solid playing time right away as a true freshman. Could be a difference maker for the Maryland Terrapins, especially in the long term. Meanwhile, for the runners-up in the Sun Belt, they end up signing a JUCO out of Florence, South Carolina, and Caden McPherson. And Caden McPherson was extremely fierce for that starting job, but Trey Richardson does end up hanging on to it for now. But he does end up winning the backup quarterback job. However, he might start as a senior as long as he can continue to hold off the freshman redshirt and Jacob Donaldson. But the Miami Hurricanes actually have signed arguably the most custom guys out of this group. They ended up finding a way to sign 3 players from the custom ranks this season. One of them is the quarterback in Drake May Jr., a freshman out of Keller, Texas. He joins a quarterback room that also happens to have another custom red shirt in Trevor Veeden. Trevor Veeden, a freshman redshirt, who is going to be the backup quarterback behind Rodney Walker. And wide receiver, we have a JUCO transfer in Eric Pierre. And Eric Pierre, while he does make the team, isn't going to be expected to make a big impact for this program, seeing that he is the number 6 wide receiver, and he only has at most 2 years of eligibility after like this year, if he doesn't find the field in his junior campaign. But he does join Tyrell Smokey Wallace, who is the number 1 receiver on this team, already as a custom sophomore. You know, it's always hard to replace a legend, but they're going to eventually look at Jet Anderson to replace that legend. FM4 has graduated and moved on, and now we're looking at Jet Anderson as a custom player for the Michigan Wolverines. However, he is going to be their 3rd string quarterback, could be redshirted as he's behind both Jerome Coker and Junior Blaylock, who is a junior redshirt, both upperclassmen. For the Minnesota Golden Gophers, they also only signed 1 player, and that is Ray Jackson. Ray Jackson's got the speed, and he's got the swag in his name as well. Ray just built different, but he is expected to be the 3rd string tailback, but going to be a constant competition between Brian White and Adrian Culver as well. Has 2 very good running backs in front of him in Daniel Parker and Sean Benson. Moving on to the great state of Nebraska, the Cornhuskers were able to sign 2 separate players from the custom players class. One of them is Solomon James Matunde, a sophomore out of Eastern Los Angeles. He is going to be deep on the depth chart, so he might be redshirted in his first year at the University of Nebraska. But the same might not be said for the true freshman Drew Peebles. Drew Peebles is a true freshman out of Crystal, Minnesota. He does make the 2 deep, so we actually might occasionally see him on the field this upcoming season, even as a true freshman. As for the University of Oregon, George Gentry will have the pleasure of trying to develop Mayo Matafa. I probably butchered that, and if this is your custom player, please let me know what the pronunciation of this is down in the comment section, because, oh boy, we're going to struggle with that name for sure. Mayo Matafa has some promise, but he is going to be redshirted because he is expected to be the 5th string tailback behind Josh Walker Jr., for example, who is also one of your guys' customs. So there was only one other school besides the Miami Hurricanes that did end up signing 3 custom players. One of them is the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're the only other school that signed 3 custom guys. One of them is Bailiff Thomas, and Bailiff Thomas is a 4-star player out of Washington, Ohio, but he's going to be expected to be redshirted behind the guys like Austin Gross, Zach Mills, and Brooks Hicks, who are all very good quarterbacks in their own right, but Bailiff Thomas might start for the Buckeyes someday. The other 2 are on the defensive side of football, however, and Parker Thomas, well, he actually will have a chance to play right away thanks to his elite speed. He's got 95 speed, and he does win the 2nd cornerback job out of spring football, so we will see him right away. Same cannot be said for JJ Jammy. JJ Jammy out of Winter, Georgia, is expected to be that 3rd string free safety. Could be redshirted depending on how this season ends up playing out. Meanwhile, at the University of Oklahoma, we got a junior quarterback in Jordan Mitchell. Jordan Mitchell has spent some time in the JUCO ranks, and in the JUCO ranks, he wasn't someone that played a lot, but he has some major tools. If he can avoid being injured, Jordan Mitchell does have the talent to take Oklahoma to where they want to go as a program, he does get that chance as the starting quarterback for this team. Now, moving on to the Penn State Nittany Lions, where they end up signing multiple custom players. We start with their wide receiver, Hingle McCringleberry. Hingle McCringleberry is from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, but not expected to play much as he is the 5th wide receiver on this team. Thankfully, Penn State does only have 5 wide receivers on the roster, so he'll probably play in some capacity right away. The same could also be said for the true freshman in Scott Tanner out of Fairfield Park, Ohio. He is going to be the backup cornerback coming out of spring ball, just barely beating out sophomore Corey Shelby. Scott Tanner is going to go ahead and also get some playing time for the Nittany Lions as well. Now, Bubba Pritchett was a big-time recruit out of Perrington, Texas. He was actually a 4-star player, and he chooses to commit to Rice, although that 70 overall suggests that maybe he doesn't deserve to be a 4-star. We'll have to wait and see, but he still wins the starting defensive tackle job. He'll be rotating in alongside other defensive tackles that do have a little bit more college football experience, with the exception of Pierre Lawson. But now let's check in on Jake Jacobs' original stomping grounds before moving to TCU and then most recently to Georgia. The Temple Owls signed a couple of custom guys. Cosnester Smith, a true freshman out of the city of Brotherly Love. Well, he does make the team as their number 6 corner. Could be redshirted or at the very least maybe play special teams, but not a lot expected from Smith in his true freshman campaign. But the same can't necessarily be said for the guy that transferred in from a smaller school, and Ethan Davis Blaylock. Davis Blaylock is from Pittsburgh and finally is on a higher end Division I roster for his last year. He is a grad transfer, so only 1 year for him, but he is a solid player at 80 overall. He's the wide receiver for the Temple Owls. That being said, the Texas Longhorns do sign a custom player themselves, but not a high-end player that you would expect. Gage Youngblood is only a 63 overall, so expected to be redshirted right away. Not a lot of depth here at this running back position, especially after Derek Hawthorne and Lonnie Cameron as well. They'll still have a couple years to figure it out before they have to decide whether to start Darius Coleman or this Gage Youngblood. He'll definitely need a redshirt for sure. Also needing a red shirt most likely is Landry II out of San Jose, California. Landry II has some talent, but he's also in a very good running back room. One that does have 2 FCS transfers in Pedro Carter and Walter McAfee as well, who expected to be a true star for this football team. But at the quarterback position, we do have Kenji Kobayashi, who is, I think, is familiar or related to the Clemson quarterback that just won the Heisman Trophy. But dude has some speed to burn. He's got 89 speed, and if he gets in his true freshman campaign, look out, this kid, it could be special down the line. He almost beats out Brandon Hollis for the starting quarterback job. Brandon Hollis, however, will be starting for UCLA here in year number 4. Speaking of those quarterbacks, though, USC does sign another high-end quarterback. They did sign Cody Kessler II last year, but he did transfer to Arizona. So Jaden Durant is his heir apparent. He'll be expected to be the third-string quarterback behind a couple of older players in Victor Spence and Steve Robinson. But he wasn't the only custom to join this USC Trojans team, as he will also be joined by Luatalia Tamafalifa. Yeah, we're going to need another pronunciation of that in the comments section, but I appreciate y'all trying to work with me if you made it this far into the video. Very good linebacker. He's like a high 4-star, borderline 5-star kid coming out of high school, and he'll be getting some steady playing time in that backup linebacker position. I believe he was able to beat out another talented linebacker in Ricky Wilson. But this is Adam Hurst's position until he decides to either graduate or moves on to the NFL. Meanwhile, as USF, they only have one custom guy, but it could be an impact player in Malachi Smith. Malachi Smith from Pine Hills, Florida. While he doesn't have the size, Well, he certainly does have the speed, and he'll be starting alongside the slightly taller Ken Reed. It is one of the smaller wide receiver rooms in the country, but one of the faster wide receiver duos, especially between these two particular guys. Of course, at Washington, the Washington Huskies love to run the ball, and Jonah Kaminsky certainly fits that scheme. A power guy that's got some speed to him as well. He'll be expected to be redshirted, but does have a bright future, especially once some of these older running backs do end up graduating. Could see Jonah Kaminsky getting consistent playing time as soon as next year, but this is not his year, at least not yet. And finally, out of the University of Virginia, a legacy could be reborn. Mike Vick III, the very well related to Michael Vick, who played at Virginia Tech, was definitely one of the best college players to ever come out of Virginia Tech. Well, he goes to his rival school in Virginia, and he is actually the opposite of Michael Vick. He's more of a traditional passer, but can beat you with his arm for sure. Still has the cannon that his famous relative has. It's a younger quarterback room, but Mike Vick is going to be redshirted here in his true freshman campaign. But guys, that will go ahead and wrap things up here for the preseason episode. We went through quite a lot in this first episode. I mean, we saw the top 25, we saw each individual conference and broke that down as well. And shoot, we even saw some of your guys' custom coaches and custom players as well that are joining the NCSL ranks. But next episode is purely gameplay. Next episode, we will have our very first week of NCSL action here in year number 4, and it's something that I am extremely excited about, and I hope you guys are excited for year number 4 officially kicking off as well. If you are, I need you guys to go ahead and do me a massive favor. Go ahead and smack that like button for me, and then also hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is John Shake Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.